Heyo! Welcome to Marshall Knows Stuff. I'm Marshall, and I know stuff. So, my friends, I realize it's been a long time since we've had a chat. There's been many hiccups along these past couple months that prevented me from making a video. Some of which I explained in a video that got erased, which is why I'm making this video now. Apart from my brother's wedding and illness and work, I had 3 weeks worth of videos get deleted off of my iPad. But I am back in action now, and I'm very glad that all of you stuck in there with me throughout all of these tribulations. Stay tuned for the next episode of Marshall Knows Stuff. Welcome to Marshall Knows Stuff. I'm Marshall, and I know stuff. Stick around and I'll show you how to know some of the stuff that I know. Now, if you're following me on Twitter and Instagram, you are following me on Twitter and Instagram, aren't you? You know that I haven't been sitting by idle. I've actually been pretty busy with a lot of stuff. The last project that I picked up was the cable knife, and first I ran out of patience, then I ran out of flux, then I ran out of time on doing it. I haven't put it down completely. I'm going to pick it back up. But the reason I ran out of time is because it's my daughter's birthday, and she wanted me to smith her something, and I had to put the other projects on hold. When it comes to faith or family or work, I have to put my hobbies on hold and get ready for other stuff. So I'm going to be doing a project for her today, and I'm going to be completing it so that I can get that present taken care of, and then I'm going to get back to the cable knife. If you're waiting around for the cable knife, it's on its way. So my daughter is a little musician, and she found a railroad spike that she wanted me to make something for her out of. I had the idea to make her a treble clef coat hanger. It should be a pretty simple project. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep heating, hammering, and drawing this out. The only thing, I'm going to leave the head as the little hook for it, so you can still tell that it's a railroad spike. The only issue that I think I'm going to run into on this project is whether or not I'm going to run out of steel. I might have to forge weld the steel. So today on Marshall Knows Stuff, we're going to be making the Maddy's present treble clef coat hanger. Like I said, the only issue that I think I'm going to be running into on this project is running out of steel with the railroad spike. So what I did is I mocked up a treble clef out of some solid wire so that I could just bend it around and get an idea of how long I need to make my steel in order to make it one continuous loop. So I put this in the vise, I bent it all around to give myself the general shape. Now all I'm going to have to do is, now that I've got it shaped and cut exactly where it is, I'm going to straighten it back out, and then that will be my guide for the length of my steel. Then I'm going to start drawing it out, and then I'll know as soon as I get my steel to this length that I'm going to have enough steel to complete the project. You always want to do a dry run first. It's a lot easier to do the dry run, and then that way you can find out what mistakes you're going to make whenever you're going through the real thing, and rectify them as they come along. Looks like maybe about 2 feet, maybe a little bit more, maybe about like 26 inches or so. But that's my guide. I will have to work towards getting the spike about that long. Let's get the forge on and get cooking. So I've never done anything this long before. That's what she said. and I'm running into some fundamental problems as a result. The first of which is I'm regretting the overall design of the forge. Originally I said that I wanted to put a stock stand on the forge. This is getting about that long, and I'm going to need something to prop it up to keep one area of it in the fire. The other problem that I'm having, and the reason that I brought this up with a friend of mine, is the forge is deep. So I can't keep the fire close to the stock as it's laying across the top of the forge. I usually stick stuff down into the forge because I'm only doing knives and little stuff like that, and it's easy to just stick it right down in there. But I want a shallower bowl so that I can keep the heat closer to the stock that is laying across the top. The 3-inch deep forge that I have is a little bit deep to keep the heat right next to it. But for this, it's not really working out so well, and I have this sneaking suspicion that I'm going to run out of charcoal before I'm able to finish this project, and I'm going to be like worst dad ever, coming up with a gift a day late. Another thing that I had to look at in doing this is I had to decide the taper at the head. I'll flip this around so you can see it. I had to decide how gradually I wanted it to taper, and I actually need it kind of sharp. I'm also going to leave the whole thing square so I can give it some twists and make it a little bit more ornate. But the thickness at the neck has pretty much got to stay the same. I did hammer it down a little bit, but if you're going to do this project on your own, you're going to want to be real careful of the head. I spent the past like 3 or 4 heats just concentrating on the neck of this, and I think I've got it pretty much to where I want it. You can see the rest of it is a lot thicker, but I just wanted to taper that down to give myself a good starting point, give myself a goal for the rest of it, where I wanted the rest of it. And that's actually down there pretty far. Where's my thingamabob? That's the original number 2 solid copper that I used for the guide, and that's that taper on there. Might be able to stand a little bit more right here, but pretty much right here is where I'm going to go for the rest of it. You can see the difference between that as you go. So now, oh, and also height. So I'm going to start working the rest of it down. So this thing is coming along nicely. Let me grab a glove here so I can grab it and show you. Another thing I'll tell you, I got these deerskin gloves. I was like super proud of them. And I started to use them on this project. I'll show you the difference. As soon as I put this thing over the fire, the fingers started to shrink up. So stick with the thick leather gloves like I usually use. These guys are way more sturdy. They're big and they're clumsy, but I stick this thing right into the forge all the time, and it holds up pretty well. A little bit deformed, but it's still not choking up. But anyway, this thing is coming along really well. Check out the taper and the length on all of that. And it's not quite tapered all the way down. I've got it tapered to, I've got it reduced to the thickness that I want right there. We can see it gets a little bit thicker, but it's not quite enough. I like where the thickness is up here, and I don't want to mess with that too much. And I'm not going to be able to pull out quite enough. I'll probably only be able to get another couple inches out of this by drawing the rest of this out as far as I can to that same thickness. So I will have to weld it. And in order to do that, I'm also going to have to reduce another railroad spike down to a similar thickness, and then get the whole thing hot enough to where I can weld the 2 tips together. And I simply don't have the charcoal for that. I started another one today,
but I literally went through 155-gallon drum full of charcoal between the 3 attempts at the cable knife and this guy. So I'm way out, and this is gonna have to wait for a day or two. I've got one going now. It's not gonna be ready until tomorrow, and then I'll send another one tomorrow, and then that'll probably be enough to finish this project up. But as you can see, I've still got about another foot or so on that. It's all together coming along really well, but as with most projects, it threw me some curveballs, and it's always harder than I anticipated. There's always little things whenever you're doing something brand new you've got to figure out along the way, and just drawing this thing out enough didn't end up being as easy as I thought it would, so I will have to continue to draw out and then forge weld another piece on here, and that's going to have to wait until, luckily it's holiday, so it's going to have to wait until like day after tomorrow or something like that. I should have enough time to finish this up, but I'll see you then. Again, it's going to just be another cutaway for you, but it'll be a couple days for me. See you in a couple days. Hey gang, had a time to replenish my charcoal, so let's get back at it. Let's go ahead and finish up this Maddy's Present treble clef coat hanger. I gave myself enough time to make about, I guess about 40 gallons of charcoal, so it should be more than enough to get going on this. What I decided that I want to do is take another railroad spike, and I'm going to hammer the tip of it out so that it matches the width of this, and then I'm going to forge weld that together. I'm not going to bother cutting off the other head of it quite yet because I want to give it about 2 or 3 inches of weld on there, hammer that flat, and then see how much more of that I'm going to need. If I want more or less, I'm going to be able to adjust that without cutting it off, without nipping that quite yet. So here we are. We're at about, I guess I'd say about 18 inches of railroad spikes so far. Let's kick on the forge and get back at it. Time to grab a freshie and apron up. Try to get this done. It's the middle of winter now. The days are technically getting longer since it's January, but we have a certain amount of daylight left over in today before we have to call it quits. So we're going to see how far we can get today. I have a feeling the lighting is going to mess with me today too, because it snowed yesterday, so it's really bright outside. All the snow reflecting around. And it's still just as dim in my garage. Not only is it dim in my garage, but everything in here is frozen. It's going to be kind of nice to have the heat of the forge coming in here. It's about 29 degrees right now. So that that heat from the forge is going to feel good. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start actually heating up my second railroad spike, because it's going to take a lot longer for it to heat than it will my my thinned out railroad spike. This only takes a couple of minutes to get to a hammering temperature, whereas the thicker one, the one that's like 3/4 inch thick, is going to take a lot longer to heat up. So I'm going to start heating out that end, hammering it down to a similar, maybe
3/8. This one looks like it's about 3/8 thick. And hammer that out so I can start welding those parts together, those two ends together. I'm gonna switch my gloves too. Like I said in that one that I did last week, these things are kind of crappy. I was just using them for charcoal. That's what happens whenever you use pallets for your charcoal. You end up with a whole bunch of nails in there. I actually keep these next to my forge, so whenever I go to dump out the nails, I just dump them into these things. I filled up, I don't know, over the past couple months, probably about 4 of these cans full of nails. I just keep a fresh one around. It's gonna take a minute. Let's switch over to the time lapse. All right, both sides are about the same thickness, and also the temp. I haven't really figured out how, or rather decided how I'm going to get these together at the same time, because my original spike is so long that it's going to be hard to like keep it in here, and then the other one I've got to keep it steady. I've got to keep both of them steady while I'm doing all this, and without the stock stand it's going to be kind of a uphill battle. I've already fluxed this one, so I've got that nice glass going on around the outside of it, but I got to keep both of them steady at the same time. Steady and hot. Both of them, I have to keep both of them also very hot at the same time. So I'm going to reflux this one. I'm going to do about 3 inches of it, about 3 inches of the spike on there. Keep it up to temperature, let it melt down on there, and then while that one's sitting, I'm going to flex the other one. Hey gang! We're back to work on our project again, and I have to admit I was a little bit defeated on this thing, and I'm kind of embarrassed about how big of a fit I was throwing about it. But I kind of cheated a little bit. I like to do these videos with like next to no material or expensive tools needed in order to accomplish them, but this was just like too long, too much weight. It's teetering out, and then not having like a big anvil surface to where I could set both of these on there at the same time and then hammer them out was made it pretty impossible. I mean, if I knew that I wasn't going to have enough steel to begin with, then I probably would have just forge welded these two tips together to begin with, and then I wouldn't have had to have messed with this teetering BS, like trying to tip out of the forge and off of the anvil, etc. So, like I was saying, I kind of cheated a little bit. I went to a friend's house and I just ran a real quick bead between these two railroad spike tips just so I could hold these together. Now what I can do, they're solidly put together, well, semi-solidly, as much as a little tack can do, one little bead. But now what I can do is I can get the forge going, I can get both of these tips the same temperature at the same time, and then I left myself that little crack there. I didn't put them down flush with each other. I left that little crack on purpose because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be getting these two tips up to critical temperature, and then I'm going to stuff that with flux. I'm going to stuff it in there, and I'm just going to hammer the snot out of it. And we're going to get a good forge weld going on those two tips. And then more nails out of the bottom of the forge. I'm gonna have to come up with an idea, something to do with all these nails. I think I might make some Damascus out of it or something, some forge nail Damascus. So, something totally awesome just happened. You know how I went all the way to Lowe's to get oxygen, then went all the way to a friend's house to weld the two spikes together. And hammering this one flatter, this vibration on the stiff steel broke these two pieces apart. This project has just been doomed. At this point, I don't even know. I've never done this particular project before, so I don't know if there's gonna be, a right way to do it. I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go. But having these two things welded together was not very easy. I welded a tip of a spike to a head of a spike before, and that actually wasn't too bad. That was welded pretty well, but these two spikes, this two pretty similar thicknesses, two pretty similar steels, but it's just not going together. I don't know how to proceed with this, but like I said, I'm not going to give up on it because this is something that's near and dear to my heart. Doing something special for my daughter for her birthday, so I'm not going to give up on it, and I'll have to figure out how to do it. I'm going to sign off for a minute and think about it. I'm going to think about it for a minute. Okay, I took a little bit of a break, and sometimes that's important to do. I was getting frustrated with this project, and I was ready to give up, so I put it down for a second and collected myself and came back and decided I was just going to stop messing around. And I put a bead all along the whole length of my second spike. So with that there, I shouldn't have any more issues. I should be able to hammer this all together, forge weld it all, without having it break too bad, because what was happening was this end was getting too thin, and I'm going to go pop that kid's tires. He just races up and down my street. This end was getting too thin, and it was bending back and forth as I was hammering it, and it just broke. So now, with all that rigidity on there, I don't think any amount of hammering is going to make this break before it's forge welded together as much as I need. This being where it is right now, I shouldn't have any troubles finishing it today, and then I'll get to editing and post this tonight, which is going to be an important thing to do because I have something special coming up tomorrow. Don't worry, it's not another couple-month-long hiatus like last time. It's going to be something that involves Marshall Knows Stuff, and I'm going to hopefully have that posted by tomorrow night. That's my plan, but best laid plans of mice and men, right? Let's get the forge on, and let's hammer this guy together. Let's finish this project up. Let's make a freaking treble clef. Like I know I've told you in previous videos, I like to keep some fresh charcoal over top of whatever it is I'm heating, because it really keeps the heat in. The fan is blowing all the heat up to put all the oxygen onto this stuff, but it's just blowing the heat straight out. When you put the charcoal over top of that little burn pot there, that really keeps the heat in and warms you up like that. As you can probably tell, it got dark and cold, but I'm almost there. I'm about, let's say about 2 or 3 inches away from being the length that I want. There's a bulge in the middle that I'm doing right now, and after I get that guy hammered out, I think we're going to be just about there. So,
Here we go. Hey.
This is where the
Holy moly.
went right through that. This is where it was getting welded together, and you can see where it's like wrapping around one, and it's split apart. I need to flux this back together and then see if I can't hammer all this out. Because it's just splitting apart right now. If it splits apart again, then I'm hosed. Because I'm tired of this thing splitting apart. Like, dude, it's like both sides are so thin that you hammer it and it just starts to spread apart. All right, it took some doing, but we're there. It was as with most of my projects, kind of a pain to get it to even here. I have a feeling that now it's going to be downhill. Let's cross our gloved fingers, hope that it is. So all I need to do now is start bending this into place and hope that it holds its integrity. Now that I've got it the length that I need it, I'm going to go ahead and take my guide and I'm going to bend it back to where I had it to begin with, because I want to get roughly the same dimensions that it was before, and then I'm going to mimic those dimensions on my steel while it's hot, so I don't have to do it while like heat it up in the wrong spot, bend it, move it back around. It's going to be a lot easier if I do it on my guide and then just mimic it on the steel. Just made this guy tonight. Gonna try it out. One full twist. Now, I've got that little twist on it. Sweet. Okay, we're plenty hot right there. So, let's get this riced up. And this thing's being ornery already. Not so bad though. Nothing I can't handle. Wanting to split right here. You squeeze it back together. It's just cooling at different times, and it's kind of being a pain in the butt. Now I've got that there. I'll squeeze this area together. It's a little bit shorter than my first, but the bend is right where I want it. I like it. I'm gonna keep it. It needs to bend back a little bit now. So I'm going to heat it right here, and I'm going to give it another little twist before I give it the curl in, and then our excess, all of our excess, will be pointed out for our top hook. We're almost there. It's as hot as I need it right there. So let's vise it. And get my handy dandy gadget again. Put it just above the line where I need to turn it. And let's give it a twist. Perfect. Come on. Another little twist. Now we're ready for our curl. Right into the middle. We're almost there. It's going to be like one more bend. So long as everything goes correct. And we'll cross our fingers for that. Because this thing has kind of been fighting me more than I thought that it would. Even on this bending part. Like you'd think that just bending it into a little curlicue would be pretty easy, but it hasn't. But that's really more because of the steps that led up to it. Because welding these two things together, these two spikes together, the correct way has kind of been a pain in the butt. It hasn't really worked out that way. Welding them correctly hasn't worked. So I've just kind of been backpedaling the whole time. I've been backpedaling and trying to compensate for not doing it correctly to begin with, just because I didn't really know how much steel I was going to need to complete this project. And now it's kind of ended up, you know, winging a lot of it because I, you know, never done it before. I didn't have any idea how much steel that I would need, and it kind of messed it up a little bit with the weld. So now everything that I do on this thing, it's like I'm trying not to break any of these welds, but I think I just did it. I think I just bent the two hooks into a treble clef and into two hooks, one that sticks out further than the other. I'm going to have to connect these at the top and bottom, but rather than trying to forge weld them and totally jacking that up, I think it was just two different kinds of steel, and like I've had less trouble trying to weld brass to steel than I have these two spikes together. It's like one was just cooling way faster than the other, and when that happens, you can't weld it. Like even though they were both at the same temperature and I was hammering them, I could see like the sliver over the top cooling real fast, and it wasn't working out. I'm not going to do a full quench on this because I want it, again, I need it to be a little bit malleable to mess with it some more, and this is going to be a gift that I hope my daughter keeps for the rest of her life, and it'll probably be going with her through some moves into college and into her own place and stuff like that. And it might get banged, and whenever it does that, I don't want it to be brittle and to break. So I don't want to get it up to critical temp and then quench it. I don't want it to be fully hardened. I want it to just be a little bit malleable still. But there you have it. This thing is it's a treble clef, and it's also a coat hanger. There you go. Sorry for the delay on my next video. It's been months, I know, and I apologize for that. I am super glad all of you guys hung in with me through all those trying months. And you know the drill. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, share, and let's keep knowing some stuff.